Welcome back to Steel Bear Academy. My name is Jonathan. Today I'm going to be showing you how to clean your Glock pistol. Now there's lots of different models of Glocks, but they pretty much all work the same way. So today I've got a Glock 17 Gen 2. First things first, we are going to make sure our gun is unloaded. So we're going to take our magazine out. If we've got a semi-auto pistol, we're going to lock the slide open. I'm pushing up on that little tab to get it caught in that little notch right there on the pistol. We're going to lock that open. We're going to check our gun to make sure it is indeed unloaded. This is very important. Make sure there's no ammunition in your vicinity, none at all. We don't want to make a mistake of putting any ammunition in our gun while we're cleaning. That's a very common way people have negligent discharges. So before we get started, I want to show you a couple of tools that we're going to be using. You're going to need some sort of cleaner. So that can look like different things, but today what I'm going to use is Ballistol. So that's this stuff right here. It is a CLP, a cleaner, lubricant, and protectant. So it does the job of both cleaning and the lubricating and protecting. So it's kind of all three, but I'm gonna call it 2 stages because the other option would be to have a 2-stage process like this. This is Hoppy's number 9. So this is a cleaner. And then once you clean everything off your gun, then you're going to lubricate it, which is the 2nd stage. So this is the first stage of 2, but I don't have the oil here present, so I'm just going to use the single stage, or the I should say the one and all, or cleaner, lubricant, and protectant, CLP. This is like 1 stage, so you just use this as your cleaner, and then it will dry and it will become a lubricant that will also lubricate your guns as well. There are lots of different types of CLPs. This is just what I tend to prefer. I like it because it smells relatively nice, and I also bought a lot of it, so I'm kind of invested at this point, but you could pick any CLP, it doesn't really matter. Some people even like to use other types of cleaners like Simple Green or soap, just soap and water. Those things all can be used, but you have to be more careful that you get rid of all the cleaner once you're done, because those things can rust, whereas this stuff is not going to rust. This is oily by nature, so it's not necessarily the best cleaner, but it is good enough for our purposes. So I start with some Ballistol. We're also going to need a rod, a cleaning rod. So this is the rod portion of it, and then it comes with a brush. So we're going to be using the 38 caliber brush, and it just twists in like this. These are fairly universal, so if you buy a brush, most rods will also fit it. You do have to just make sure that if you pick the same brand, it should work together. So we need a brush. This is a brass brush. It doesn't have steel brushes on it. These are brass, so they're a softer metal than steel, and that's important because we don't want to be scratching up the inside of our barrel. We also want to have some sort of eyelet. I'm not sure what this is called. This is like a hoop, basically. It's a hoop attachment for that same rod. And this is what we're going to use to run our patches through later. If you notice, I also have this mat on my table here. You can use whatever is available. I use an old t-shirt that I cut in half to become my table. Notice that we're outside. You want to make sure that you do this outside so you don't get cleaning fumes into your nose and lungs. Might as well avoid that when you can, but if you have to do it inside, just make sure it's very, very well ventilated, and has lots of circulating air like a fan, especially over your work area. Notice I'm also wearing gloves. This is not absolutely critical depending on what sort of product you're using, but pretty much every cleaning product is going to pull moisture out of your hands. So if you don't want your hands to get dry and scratchy and itchy, I would recommend wearing some gloves. These are nitrile gloves, and you can buy them at like Harbor Freight or any hardware store. You don't need particularly robust gloves for these products that we're using. So those are pretty much all the things you need. Oh, I have a toothbrush here. The toothbrush is useful for basically just brushing things. Obviously make sure you don't use this on your teeth afterward. And this is just an old toothbrush that I used. And then once it becomes part of the gun cleaning kit, it will always be part of the gun cleaning kit. You also have this over here. This is a bore snake. So this is essentially a replacement or alternative to using a rod with a brush. This you basically feed through the gun like this and then pull it out the other end. This is another option for cleaning out the barrel, the bore of your gun. I'm not going to use it in this particular video, but this is for another gun that I'm going to clean. I forgot this item. These are patches. So you can use pretty much any type of patch you want. I think these are cotton, and these are going to be used for a kind of final cleaning when we run our patches hooped into this eyelet at the end. So you'll take a look, but I wouldn't worry too much about buying these. You can just make patches from cutting up some t-shirt if you want to. These ones generally don't leave like a lot of lint, but some t-shirts might leave lint, so it's up to you. It's your preference. If you want to be more meticulous, then you should use proper patches that are intended for this purpose, but you can also just use a t-shirt that's cut up. All right, so let's get started. First things first, we're going to take our gun apart. So we made sure it's empty. Next, we're going to take it apart. Now to take a Glock apart, you just got to make sure it's empty. Check to make sure it's empty. Point it in a safe direction. You're going to pull the trigger. This is going to make our trigger back like this. The gun only lets you pull the trigger once without racking the slide. So next what we're going to do is we're going to come around the back side of the slide here like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull slightly back on it. You see how it kind of takes it out of battery like that? It's just slightly not all the way closed. Okay. Now when I do that, I also have to pull down on these tabs over here. So these little tabs right here are on both sides, and what I need to do is I need to relieve the pressure on them. So pull this back, pull down on these tabs, and then once I do, I can let the slide come forward, and then I can release the pressure on the tabs, and then the slide will come right off. Okay? Once we have that off, I can pull this recoil spring off, so I just kind of thrust forward with my thumb to get it off of that little peg, and then it comes off like that, and then the barrel slides around. I just pull the barrel out the back like so, and this is basically all we need to do to field strip a Glock. Now here's what I start by doing. I like to start by spraying some oil, some CLP on anything that I'm going to clean, and I'll start with the barrel. So I just take a little CLP, and let's see if my little squirter still works. This one doesn't seem to be working. We'll use this aerosol one since I have it. Okay, I guess this one's not going to work either. There we go. So you're basically just trying to get a little bit of this product onto the whole thing. There we go, now it's spraying. So you want to get nice and wet all around. I'm getting a good amount into the barrel. Okay. And when I pull my finger away, it probably is going to drop out. So there we go. Some of it's going to go on the slide as well. I think I'm going to do a little bit on this recoil spring. This is probably not always necessary, but I'm going to get a little bit on here because I haven't cleaned this thing in a long time and I want to wipe it down. I'm going to wipe with my hands on the outer exterior of the slide. Now in here, the only thing we want to be very careful that we don't get any oil in is we want to make sure we don't get oil up into the striker channel, which is behind that hole. So there's a hole right there, like where the back of the round would be sitting. Hopefully you can see that. It's a hole right there. So I just want to make sure that gravity is helping me to keep oil out of that spot. So anytime I put oil in there, I want to make sure gravity is helping me keep it away from going in there. I also want to make sure I don't get oil down into this channel right here, which is the back side of the striker channel. So basically what that means is anytime I'm working from here down, it should be tilted down like this. Anytime I'm rubbing oil from here back, it should be tilted up like this, if that makes sense. See that? So that the oil would not go down into that channel. We'll spray a little bit of oil in here. This ballistol is not seeming to be working. That's okay. That's why I've got this one. This is just more ballistol. Let's see if this one works a little better. There we go. This is way overkill of an applicator, but this is a very cheap bottle that I bought from Walmart, and it works. So I'm just going to get some oil kind of all around, taking care not to get any up and into that channel. I'm going to try to get a little bit of oil worked into all the spots of the slide where it's dirty. You can see it's pretty dirty. I'll spray a little ballistol on my brush here. And now I'm going to try to get into the slide rails. So that's these rails that are running in here. And that's what the brush is helpful for. So when I'm aiming it down like this, I'm just careful that I don't go higher than right here so it doesn't get into the striker channel. We'll do that on both sides. We're not trying to break off too much right now. We are just trying to apply the oil. So here, notice how I'm facing the gun this way, so gravity will help keep it out of the striker channel. And then I'm going to turn it this way for the same thing on the other side. Right now we're just applying oil. Some is going to get brushed off, that's cool, but that's not really what we're doing at the moment. The oil is going to naturally kind of dissolve and pull stuff away. Periodically you might want to brush your brush down. Now I'm going to brush here, and I'm basically just trying to get some of the bulk of this carbon buildup, that's this black stuff, off. And we'll leave that to work for a few minutes. On the frame, there's not a whole lot you need to do. I think just taking a kind of damp, oily brush and doing a little brush will be sufficient. I think I got to get some of the dirt off of this because it's kind of making it look even dirtier. And we're just trying to brush these metal portions, getting any excess carbon that's built up. I can see right in here it's building up carbon, so I want to brush in here, but it's not going to get rid of it all. We're just applying a little bit of this ballistol to work on these parts. The frame is going to be something that you might want to do a deep cleaning of periodically. I like to get up in there and use that a little bit here and there. This is not entirely necessary, but just trying to work that stuff around. And now I'm going to use a bit of my corner of my cloth here. Just give it a little wipe down. Wipe down that recoil block where that black stuff was accumulating. And I'm just giving a little wipe down on all these metal parts. And I'll bunch up a little bit of this shirt to stick it in here. And then I'm going to kind of brush it away. Brush it away. It's not going to be perfectly clean, but if you want to make it perfectly clean, you could. You could spend a lot more time on this. Just the very act of taking that brush with a little bit of oil on it is going to apply any oil that you need to down into the inner workings of this gun. So don't worry too much about oiling any of this part. If you were using a two-stage process, you just want to make sure that you put a little drop of oil on the guide rails, which are these little metal inserts. And with that, I would call that pretty good. Just make sure everything moves, get a little oil moving on those things. I'm going to do one more wipe down on that locking block, which is that part here. Again, if you want to be more meticulous, you can, but just kind of doing a light brushing of this cloth over it is going to get a majority of everything. I'll stick my cloth into the mag well, take the bottom of my brush and push that up and into it so it gets up high in there, and then I'm applying pressure on all the walls of the inside of the mag well. It'll come out like that. I'll give it a little once over. There's definitely some carbon built up still right in here. I'm not too concerned about that. I definitely cleaned a lot of it off. If you want to get in there, you could get in there with some Q-tips and some oil, but I am not concerned about that. If this was your carry gun, you might want to be a little more meticulous periodically, but for routine cleaning, that'll do. You don't need to worry about getting oil on any of this. It'll be fine. Just kind of residual running of your hands up and down. It will apply plenty to clean off of it. Okay, now we're gonna do the barrel now. Oh, I do want to apply a little bit of oil in there onto that section of the barrel, that locking lug right there. And I'll just do a little once over on the chamber side of it. And that looks pretty good. Maybe once here. I can see that it's getting a little bit of wear right on that little shelf. That's good. That means we're using this gun quite a bit. All right, now we're gonna clean the bore. So you're gonna take a little bit of ballistol and put it onto your 38 caliber brush. This is a 9mm gun, but 38 caliber is roughly almost the same dimension, almost the same diameter. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go from chamber end, that's where the bullets would be, or the ammunition would be sitting, right, to muzzle end. So we wanna make sure that we are going one direction. I'm gonna start it by sticking it into the chamber, and then I'm going to slowly press it through. Now some people, they like to undo their brush like this and take it off and then come back out and put the brush back on and only go in one direction. I don't really feel the need to do that, so what I do is I go all the way through and now I pull all the way out. And I feel like that is fine. I'm not too worried about having a little bit of stuff come back toward me, at least not on a Glock like this. I just want to make sure I don't stop halfway and then change direction. I want to go all the way through so that the brushes are all the way out and then come all the way back through. All the way through, all the way out. And you'll feel a certain level of friction. You can tell that your brush is getting worn out when the friction goes down. So we'll just go through a few times. This is probably plenty, and your ultimate test is how clean the patches come out. So we went through a few times. I'm not worried about the exterior of the barrel. I'm just going to wipe off any excess oil. Give a little wipe. I'm going to wipe onto the feed ramp right here to get any excess carbon off of that. I'm going to kind of stick part of the shirt into the locking lug. And one more little final wipe. Now I'm going to take a look down the barrel. So I'm looking down it and I'm kind of catching the light to see if there's any little spots. Not sure if it will come up on camera, but basically I'm trying to find if there's any spots, little black flecks or shiny flecks of copper jacket. I'm not sure if it will come up on camera, but I'm just looking for little dots inside of the barrel. You'll know you have a very, very clean barrel when it's like glossy and kind of mirror reflective. We'll go a couple more rounds. Maybe I'll put a little more ballistol on this. Maybe one or two more applications of my brush. I'll go slower and feel those grooves. You can feel that brush twisting. Okay. At that point, we're going to take a patch and change our attachment to the hoop. This is a 22 caliber hoop, but so long as it's smaller than the diameter of whatever gun you're using, it'll be fine. So I take the corner and I shove it through the little eyelet very gently. It's like threading a needle. Then I come around the other side, pull on it, and I just start it kind of like this. Same thing, I'm going to go from chamber end to the other end. You can see it comes out quite dirty. Now I'll pull it back through the other end. So when it comes out dirty like this, it is not indicative that we need to scrub more necessarily, but now I'm kind of going through it and I'm keeping pressure and pushing it against the sides. If you use a larger patch or kind of bunch it up like this, that also will probably keep the pressure tighter against the walls so you can clean out more of it. We'll go through that. It came out pretty dirty, so I'm going to do one more patch. And go through like that. I kind of like wrap it so that it creates more pressure pushing through. It comes out fairly clean. You can always do more. You can always be more meticulous, but this is just a quick cleaning. You see the little black stuff. I'm not concerned if it's even cleaner than that, but when I look down the barrel, it looks nice and shiny. No little dots, and I can see those very almost mirror reflective grooves cut into the barrel. That's the rifling. So at this point, I would be happy. Some people like to keep running through patches through that barrel until these patches come out basically white, meaning they have no more stuff they're picking up. If you're gonna like put your gun away for a long time and try to keep it preserved, then maybe you want to do that. That might be something you'd like to do, but these are gonna be used again in like less than a week, so I'm not too concerned about that. Okay. All right. That looks pretty good. Now let's look at our slide again. We'll brush off any excess carbon that we've accumulated on our brush. And now we're going to do a nice little brushing on those slide rails. Trying to get any carbon out of there. We're going to pay special attention to being careful when we're passing over the striker channel. And brushing down this way. It's kind of nice on a stainless steel gun. You can really see all this carbon. On a black gun, it's a lot harder to see. I can get a little bit off of the underside of the top of the gun. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, a place you do want to be especially diligent about cleaning is, I'll use my little stick here. I want to make sure that we clean. Stay there, mister. I want to make sure we clean the breech face. So that's where that hole is on the front of the striker channel. I want to clean underneath the extractor, which is that little claw. The little claw right there, right here. So you want to make sure you clean underneath that. So you take your brush and you aim it so that it is trying to get into that claw, the extractor, but trying not to get any dirt or debris into the striker channel. So I'm trying to brush this way. Okay. All right, so at this point, it looks filthy, right? That's because it's a stainless steel gun, but now we're gonna give it a wipe down. And it should come out nice and clean. So let's see the before and after. So you can see that the carbon is suspended in the oil. Okay, and now we'll keep wiping it off. And then we'll stick our cloth inside, give it a wipe down. Now I'm going to show you half of it is clean, half of it is dirty. Hopefully that comes out on camera for you. Now obviously my hands are still applying oil and carbon to the slide, so when it comes time to do the final wipe down, I will change gloves or I will take my gloves off. And I'm just using my fingers to get into all these nooks and crannies. If you want to be meticulous, you could take something sharp, not super sharp, but like, you know, like something that comes to a point, like this is too fat, but you know, something like this, the corner of this wood, and take a patch and kind of take it like this and use the patch to try to get rid of this excess carbon built up in here. It's going to just wipe right off at this point, but If you wanted to be really meticulous, you could do that. I'm not concerned about that. I'm just going to do a nice little wipe down. Okay. And I'm trying to stick it into the slide rails using my nails and the points of my finger, running the cloth into the slide rails. Okay. I'll go this way. Periodically, you are going to want to take this slide apart and clean underneath and inside the extractor. So that'd be this little hook right here, that little black thing. You'll take that off and you'll clean inside of the channel that it runs in. There's a spring in there. You want to clean in there, clean around the sides, so you can probably see it. It is still quite chunky right there. We'll apply a little more oil and then we'll use the brush. So sometimes you might find that you get distracted and you like see a little bit that you're like, I gotta clean that. That is gonna happen, especially on a stainless gun like this. All right, and then I'm just gonna wipe that part away. Again, trying to focus on keeping gravity, helping keep that oil out of the striker channel. And that looks pretty good. You'll accumulate tools as you get more and more meticulous with your gun cleaning. So I've got a whole bucket of tools over here, but these are the ones I use most frequently, these tools. All right, that looks pretty good. And then as far as the recoil spring, I think just the oil that's on it and then give it a nice little twisty rub down inside the shirt is probably going to be sufficient to get any carbon you want off of it and also to apply any lubricant that you want on it. I would probably get a cleanish toothbrush and go like this on it. This toothbrush is too dirty at this point. It would just be making it dirtier. And the recoil spring doesn't get particularly dirty, but just want to have a nice little coat of oil on there. That looks pretty good. And let's take a look at our slide. I'll try to get some of this carbon off so I don't keep making it dirtier. Definitely cleaner. Looks a lot better for sure. Okay, now let's reassemble. Some people like to do a little bit of oil on their barrel. I think that just the oil from the cleaning process will be enough, but let's say you want to apply a little bit of oil to a gun that you haven't cleaned and you're just applying oil, like a two-stage process. You can always take a little bit of ballistol, just put a little bit on your finger, just a little bit of oil. And the places you're looking to get are all these places where there are wear marks. So you see those white lines. That one's lint, but these white lines are the wear spots. And just nice little application of oil. Like so. And then the places you're looking are anywhere where there's wear spots. So the metal is slamming against the recoil, I guess it's the locking block, right here and right here, on this spot and right here. And it's also going to be slamming right here as well. So basically you're just looking for these spots that have wear on them, and you're just going to apply a little bit of oil. Now if you notice, when I apply oil like this, I'm basically just applying it everywhere, which is fine. It's not necessary to have it be particularly precise. It's going to start moving. Oil is going to start flowing into all these spots. So it looks a little bit wet, that's fine. If you want to, you can do one little final wipe down if you want, just to get that kind of excess oil off. Okay, just a little oily. On the slide, the places that you would like a little bit of oil are inside of the slide rails, so running the length of these. And so, if you want to, you would take, ideally you would have an applicator, but let's see if this will work. This is just one way to do it. Just take a little bit on my eyelid here, and then I'm just going to put a little bit into those slide rails. Now that didn't really work at all. We'll put a little bit of oil onto this, and this will be our applicator. Let's try this. And now we'll just do a little bit of oil in there. This is one way to do it. Another way to do it is, if you want, you can put a little bit of oil onto the rails at this stage, you know? So if you put a little drop, that's quite a bit, but if you put a little drop onto these spots here, just a little bit, not a lot. Now, when the slide rides on those, it's going to distribute that oil amongst the slide rails, okay? At this point, we can put our gun back together. I'll do one final wipe down, since my gloves are constantly getting dirt and stuff inside of the gun. This is not necessary. This is me being meticulous. Okay, now the slide goes back, or the barrel goes back in the slide. It'll just kind of lock in like that. You'll take your recoil spring. There's a nub on this side. That nub goes in that circle. And now, what you have to do is you have to compress the spring slightly and then push it down to get it locked onto the barrel, like that. And there's like a semicircle cut out on the barrel for it to rest on. At that point, let's get our frame. Make sure your slide rails go onto these metal inserts, like so. Give it a little wiggle as you go along. And then once you've got to this point, now you can rack the slide, rack it a couple times. We're moving that oil around on those slide rails, and your gun is done. Nice and clean. You don't need to do too much on your mags. Maybe periodically you will clean them, but just a quick little wipe down on the outside is sufficient most of the time. I'm kind of wiping off any excess on the follower. You can take these apart and clean them inside, but most of the time that's not necessary. This is a fairly clean system, fairly clean, unless you drop them. And there's our Glock. Nice and clean, slippery. All right, make sure it works. Give it a little function test. Pull the trigger. Yeah, looks good. Not bad, right? Definitely cleaner. So this is my Glock gun cleaning video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.